Now we're going to talk about the images along the bottom of the screen. This is known as your toolbox. You can see the third question asks you to select the appropriate tool from the toolbox that can be used to extinguish a small fire confined to a small area. Your toolbox also has reference documents in it, and if you place your mouse over a reference document, it will tell you what that document is. And the same is true of the tools. The name of the tool will appear as you hover your mouse over each tool. And in order to view all of the tools, you can scroll from left to right. Selecting an item in the toolbox will put that item onto your list of answers automatically. Because it automatically adds the item to your list of answers, you do not need to click the Submit button for any item in the toolbox. And now we will finish this question by clicking on Question Completed and then confirming that answer. The fourth question asks you to find the safety data sheet for R22. Once you find the reference document and click on it, it will open up and also be added to the list of answers. You can scroll up and down to look for the information you need. And you can also zoom in and out to see information more clearly. If you're finished looking at the reference document, you can close it by clicking the X in the upper right-hand corner of the pop-up window. Sometimes the question will directly ask you to select a certain reference document to answer the question, just as this one did, but sometimes questions will not inform you that you need to refer to a certain reference document when you'll need to do so in order to answer the question. In such cases, the exam is testing your knowledge of which document needs to be referenced in order to answer the question. The fifth question is a multi-step question, and this question asks you to put condenser water pump 2 in service and take condenser water pump 1 out of service for repair. You may be tempted to start performing all of these activities immediately, but this is not necessary. The old exam worked this way, but the new exam does not work this way. It will walk you through each step, only perform the specific action or list of actions that each individual question requests that you perform. The 7 follow-up questions will take care of the rest. For example, this question only asks you to identify the gauge that directly displays the discharge pressure of condenser water pump 1. You should only find that gauge instead of doing all of the other actions that are related to starting up a pump and shutting down another pump. So let's proceed by finding the gauge that displays the discharge pressure of condenser water pump 1 and submit it as our answer. Notice that not only did our selected object show up here in the submitted selections box, but the status for the gauge also showed up here, and this is where the status for all gauges and control panels will be displayed. The status information will only be shown when it is necessary. If you randomly click and submit some gauges which are not related to the question, you may not see the status being displayed. You must submit the correct gauge to obtain the correct status information. So now I'm going to remove the incorrect gauge, mark this question as complete, and then take a look at the first follow-up question. The follow-up question is a multiple choice question, and it asks what the pressure was. Sometimes you'll need to use the status that is displayed as well as looking at a reference document to calculate a correct answer. In this case, the status was shown to be 180, and that is the answer that we should select. So we'll complete this question and move on to the next follow-up question. This question tells us the current status of condenser pump 2. That information is there to tell us what we need to do next. So first we will select condenser pump 2. And then we will use the pan and zoom features to zoom in on the knife switch. And once we find the knife switch, we will remove the lockout tagout. So I select the lockout tagout, and then I click Submit, and these two buttons appear at the top, the orange buttons, and I can select Remove Lockout Tagout, and there you see it shows up on the submitted selections. Next, we'll turn the knife switch on, so I select and submit the night switch, and I can turn it on using the orange buttons, and you'll see it will appear in the submitted selections. Next, use the pan buttons to locate the selector switch, and we'll switch it from off to auto. I've got the switch selected, but you'll notice it hasn't appeared in the submitted selections because I have not hit submit. Once I hit that submit button, you'll see I can now choose turn to auto, and it has appeared in the submitted selections box. It's important to note here that the object is listed first and then the action follows. So the last one we selected, object 332, is the selector switch, and turn to auto is the action that we selected and submitted. So turning that selector switch from off to auto starts up the condenser pump 2, and that is everything that is required to answer this specific question. So now we'll complete the question and do the next follow-up question. The follow-up question asks us to look at the discharge pressure of condenser pump 2. And in order to do that, the question asks us to identify the gauge that directly displays the discharge pressure of condenser pump 2. If we find that gauge, submit it, and notice that the status shows up. This status shows that the pressure is the same pressure as in condenser pump 1. You can remember that status for a follow-up question, and in the meantime, we will mark this question completed. And the next follow-up question, you can see, asks us what is the discharge pressure of condenser pump 2. We know that it's 180, so we can mark this question completed. The next follow-up question is asking us if it is safe to shut down condenser pump 1 without causing the flow switches for the condensers on chillers 1 and 2 to trip. And this is a straight-up yes or no question. We can answer it based on the status of the previous answers. So we can use the information that we remember from the previous questions to answer the current question. This question requests that we turn off condenser pump 1, and that involves turning the hand-off auto switch to off. Once we locate it, we click Submit. The object appears in the selection window. The orange buttons appear, and now we can click Turn to Off and move on to the next part of the question. For the next step in this question, we need to locate the knife switch. We'll submit it and turn that off. And then we need to attach the lockout tagout to the knife switch. And there we can add that. And then we'll complete the question, confirm that we have completed the question. And now that question has been completely answered, and we will move on to the last follow-up question. And this next and last follow-up question says, please now perform the necessary task to close the inlet and then the outlet valve of condenser pump 1 in that order. So this will isolate condenser pump 1, and in order to answer this question correctly, we have to make sure that we do the tasks in the order in which they ask us to do them. Submitting answers in the wrong order will cause you to fail a question. So make sure that you pay attention to the order in which you are performing those tasks. So now we can use our pan buttons here to locate the inlet valve. We'll zoom out a little bit in just a second and select the inlet valve. So we'll submit that inlet valve and close it. And next we will go to the outlet valve. And we can submit that, close it, and mark the question completed. If you notice how this question flowed and look at each of the answers to each of the questions, you'll see there are other tasks that we could have performed in this process. But that is not the purpose of this exam. As stated previously, the purpose of this exam is to test your knowledge of where components are located and how to perform only specific tasks in a process. Since no more follow-up questions show up, this means this multi-step question is completed. Once all questions for the model have been answered, click All Questions Completed. When you click the All Questions Completed button, you'll see a prompt on the screen. This prompt is your last chance to finish answering any questions that have not been completed yet. So this prompt tells us that we have not completed one question. If this prompt comes up, you should, if you have time, make sure that you go back and complete all of your questions. So here we'll go back, complete the question, confirm. You can now click All Questions Completed, since you've gone back and checked for any missed questions, and confirm it. So once you've answered all of the questions on one system, the next part of the exam will be loaded with a completely new set of questions. And once all the questions are completed for the second portion of the exam, you will once again click the All Questions Completed button and confirm it. And doing so will take you to a screen which provides you with two sets of instructions. The first instruction applies to when you have completed the tutorial exam. It instructs you to click the Start Exam button that appears here in the upper right-hand corner. Doing so will launch the actual exam. The second instruction applies to when you have completed the actual exam, and it instructs you to click a View Grade button that will appear here in the upper right-hand corner. You'll be able to view your score for the actual exam at that time, and you will need a 70 or better to pass the exam. So that is the complete tutorial from the FDNY. We've added a few graphics and a few minor explanations where we thought clarification was necessary. The only thing that we have not gone over is the component legend. The components legend will be available to you when you take the exam, and the FDNY says, as stated previously, it is critical that you memorize the information in this document. Since the new exam does not show real pictures of real objects, this document is your only resource for discerning between types of objects on the 3D model. The color legend should also act as a key resource as well. So we are not going to go through every item in this legend because it is available to you in your student materials folder and also through your instructor, and that is something that you can review on your own. It is also available directly from the FDNY on the nyc.gov website. If you Google Q01 practical exam, you'll see a link on the nyc.gov website that will take you to the instruction manual for the practical exam, and the component legend is contained within that instruction manual.